Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today officially the start of October, and with that we have our brand new updated 2026 election predictions for the governor's races that are all up in 2026. Now there's a lot of governor's races that are up. 36 of 50 are up in 2026. There's a lot of them, but a lot we also know essentially how they're going to go, so I'm going to start and break them all down. Now, starting, I'll go with the Democrats, and I'm going to go with the governor's races that I expect to be safe, meaning I expect a 15% margin of victory or more in the respective governor's races. The state of Oregon, I expect to be safe for Democrat Tina Kotek. California, it's going to be an open race with Gavin Newsom retiring due to being term limited, but it will be a safe Democratic win regardless. Hawaii, I also fully expect Josh Green will win re-election by a safe margin. Colorado, it's going to be an open race with Jared Polis being term limited, but with Senator Michael Bennet running for this race, I don't think it's going to be much of a competition. Safe for the Democrats in Colorado. In Illinois, J.B. Pritzker is running again. I fully expect this will be a 15-point safe win for the Democrats. Now, for the state of Maryland, Governor Wes Moore is up for re-election. I expect this will be over 15 points as well. The state of Pennsylvania, I previously would have this as likely for the Democrats with Josh Shapiro, but a recent poll showed Shapiro leading by around 17 points in the race. So for now, I'm going to add Pennsylvania into the safe Democratic category for Josh Shapiro. Now, New York is interesting because Kathy Hochul won in 2022, but only by around 7 points or so. So this could be a one to watch for as well. But in terms of competitiveness, I think the Democrats are still probably going to hold on and win it, especially in a midterm year that should be more favorable for the Democrats in 2026. I am going to put New York in the safe Democratic category for right now. New England, some of their governor's elections can get a little bit unpredictable, but I do think for right now, Ned Lamont, if he runs for re-election in Connecticut, I think will probably win by a pretty solid margin. In Rhode Island, the Democratic primary could get interesting with the governor not polling too great in those primaries. In terms of the general election, though, whichever Democrat advances, I expect Rhode Island will be a safe win for the Democrats. Massachusetts, with Maura Healey, fully expect she'll be reelected, and that's going to be it for all the races I currently have as safe for the Democrats at the governor level, with, again, some close calls in New York, a little bit in Pennsylvania, and I kind of want to keep an eye on Connecticut. Connecticut can kind of be a little bit wonky at the governor level. So this puts Democrats at 11 states that I am very confident are going to be safe for the Democrats. Now, the Republicans also have a lot of states that I think will be safe for them as well, including the states of Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma I expect will be safe, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina. There's a very competitive primary underway there, but I fully expect it will end up being a safe win. Florida, kind of like New York, could be more competitive, but given how the state has trended, I think we're going to see Florida go 15 points or more for Byron Donalds or potentially Casey DeSantis if she decides to enter the race as well. But I expect Florida will be a safe win for the Republicans there. And in the Northeast with Vermont, if the Republican governor Phil Scott, who is more of a liberal Republican, if he decides to run for re-election to another 2-year term, I think he'll win by over 15% of the vote. If he does not decide to run, and if he does retire, I think Vermont becomes an automatic safe Democratic win. But for now, I think Vermont remains in the safe Republican category. And that's going to be it for all the safe GOP states. So with that, 11 Democratic wins, 11 Republican wins at the governor level, all 15 points or more. Now we're going to get into the races that are going to be a little bit more competitive that I have in the 5 to 15% margin of victory window. Now, the first one I'm going to look at is the state of Texas. Texas, I don't think it's going to be all that competitive with Governor Greg Abbott seeking another term. The Democrats do have a potential long bench of candidates that could run, including potentially Beto O'Rourke, who I do believe ran last time against Greg Abbott. But I think Abbott's going to hold on and probably win by over double digits, but I don't think it'll be over 15 points. So for now, I think Texas will end up being a likely Republican win. Now, close to Texas as well, I think the state of Kansas, which is currently held by Democratic Governor Laura Kelly. She won 2 very close elections in 2018 and 2022. She is term limited and cannot run again. And I think the Republicans are going to flip the Kansas governor seat from blue to red and do so by more than 5 points. That could be a potential interesting one to watch for, but I think the Republicans should probably win Kansas without a strong Democrat like Laura Kelly running. Should not really be too much of a problem there. New Mexico, the current Democratic governor is term limited, so there is a competitive race going underway there on the primary side of things. But given the election history of the state of New Mexico, I fully expect whichever Democrat emerges, we're going to see New Mexico vote by more than 5 points, but under 15 for the Democrat in that race. Now up to the state of Minnesota, Tim Walz, the former VP nominee of Kamala Harris, announced a few days ago he will be running for re-election as well. There even is a potential that Republican Mike Lindell, close ally of President Trump, could run for this race, and also nominee from 2022 Scott Jensen is running again. Given how Walz performed, though, in 2022, and given the election type of 2026 and what's expected to be, I fully expect Minnesota is going to be a likely Democratic win for Tim Walz. Not really too much of a problem for him in that race. Now we can move to the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire, this is Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte. Ayotte, much like the former governor Chris Sununu, is more of a establishment traditional Republican, not so much of a MAGA Republican, and she won by about 9 points in 2024 to her first 2-year term as governor, and I fully expect that she'll probably win again by a likely Republican margin, probably around that 10 to 11 point number at this current point in time. Also worth noting, no super notable Democrats in the state of New Hampshire are currently considering challenging Ayotte at this current point in time. Right next door to New Hampshire, we have the state of Maine, where Democratic Governor Janet Mills is term limited, so there's a competitive race underway on the Democratic and Republican side, with several Democrats running in the state. Also worth noting, I believe the cousin of the Bush family of President George W. Bush, Jonathan Bush, is considering a run as well. So there could be a potential for a very competitive governor's race in the state of Maine with the name Bush on the Republican side and a lot of money being spent. So I do think this race could potentially get competitive, but I do think Maine will ultimately end up electing a Democratic governor by over 5 points, under 15, though certainly an important one to watch. Now we have an interesting one in the state of Alaska. Alaska right now, the Democratic candidate, I believe his name is Tom Begich, who is related, I believe, an uncle of the ambassador or the representative now, Nick Begich. He's running as the Democratic candidate, and he enters the race with the assumption that former Congresswoman Mary Peltola will not be running for governor. Now, this race, if Peltola were to run for governor, I think really could potentially get very close and maybe even could flip for the Democrats. Without Peltola in this race, though, I think governor elections in Alaska have proven to be pretty competitive, and I think it will be competitive really no matter what, especially with ranked choice voting, like with Maine being in effect here. But I do think Alaska, when everything is said and done, will elect a Republican governor, potentially the Lieutenant Governor Nancy Dahlstrom, by around 5 to 15 points. Whether ranked choice voting needs to be used or not, we'll have to wait and see. I think, honestly, it probably will be, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But if Peltola were to run, I definitely think the rankings could go down to lean Republican and maybe even tilt for the Democrats if the Democrats have the right election environment in that situation. But Alaska, I would start out in the likely category for the Republicans. And next, we have the state of Ohio. This is going to be an open governor's race where Republican candidate for president 2024, Vivek Ramaswamy, is running. He's going to be the Republican nominee, and he'll be facing off against potentially either Amy Acton or former U.S. Representative Tim Ryan. Now, either way, I think this is going to be a pretty competitive race. Ohio has become one of the more Republican trending states in the country over the last 10 to 15 years or so, which gives Vivek Ramaswamy the advantage in this race. But I do think given the right midterm environment, this could become pretty close. Though I think when everything is said and done, Ramaswamy will win by more than 5 points, but under 15 points in this scenario. Now we have 6 states that are remaining in Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. I think these are going to be the 6 governor's races that are the most competitive and most closely watched ones for the cycle in 2026. Now I'm going to start with Iowa because Iowa is a very interesting one. Kim Reynolds, the Republican incumbent governor, is not running for a third term, I believe it is. She had the option to do so, but has chosen not to. And her approval ratings were looking pretty bleak. Now, she is not running, and I do believe Representative Randy Feenstra is running on the Republican side. What's interesting is the only statewide elected Democrat in Rob Sand is running in this race. Now, Democrats are feeling very optimistic about this race and believe that Rob Sand could potentially pull an upset in the becoming very reliably red state of Iowa. Republicans believe strongly they're going to hold on to Iowa as well. So I think this race could be very competitive. The question is, does it fall under 5 points or not? Because Rob Sand is a very strong Democratic candidate. He certainly is. But I also think Iowa has become such a strong Republican state. It's sort of a back and forth of which one ultimately wins out here. And I'm going to very, very narrowly put Iowa into the likely Republican category, but like much closer to that 5-point range, like around a 5.5 to 6-point win for Feenstra over Sand in this race. I think Iowa, come Election Day 2026, we're going to be talking about Iowa being one of the more competitive governor's races that are up in the midterm cycle. So with that, we add Iowa to the list for the GOP. Now we move on to the state of Wisconsin, right nearby. This is Democrat Governor Tony Evers. He is term limited and cannot, or he is term limited in the sense that he is retiring. He could seek a third term if he wanted to, but he chose not to, so he's not term limited. He is just choosing to retire. The Democratic race is currently wide open for who the Democrat could be. I believe the Lieutenant Governor, Sarah Rodriguez, is running in the race, but there are a lot of Democrats that could potentially run, though she is the probable favorite to be the Democratic candidate right now. On the Republican side, U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany is the most notable Republican running, and given how close Wisconsin has been in recent elections at the presidential, governor, and Senate level, this is going to be one of the closest races in all of the United States. With the presidential election being decided by under 1.3 elections in a row now, and the Senate races being around that 1 point or margin or under, I'm fully expecting a very, very close governor's race unfolding in the state of Wisconsin. Now, I think Tom Tiffany is a great candidate for the Republicans to run and may be able to do very well in the state of Wisconsin. But given the election environment that I am expecting of 2026, and the recent polls show around a 3.5-point lead for the Democrats at the generic ballot level, I think we ultimately see Wisconsin getting very, very close, but one where the Democrats end up winning by around that 1-point margin. So I'm putting it in tilt Democrat right around that 1 point or under margin. I think it's going to be super close, but I think the Democrats nearly end up winning that one. Now we have the state of Michigan, where Michigan's an interesting state because when Donald Trump is at the top of the ticket, Republican turnout in the state is super high, and it looks like Republicans either can and have won this state or come very close in the case of the Senate race in 2024. Whereas in the 2022 governor's race, Gretchen Whitmer won re-election by more than 10 points. So this is going to be an interesting race from that standpoint of can Republicans in Michigan turn out when Donald Trump is not at the top of the ticket, helping them boost turnout. It should also be worth noting this is an open race with Whitmer being term limited, and independent mayor of Detroit, Mike Duggan, is running as an independent in this race and getting a large percentage of support in the state of Michigan. So Jocelyn Benson, the lieutenant governor, is like the likely Democratic candidate. On the Republican side, U.S. Representative John James is a likely GOP candidate, and Mike Duggan is running as an independent right now, setting up for a very, very close race with a very high percentage of third-party vote for Duggan. Ultimately, what this leads to is a very close race where a handful of like a few hundreds to a few thousands of votes is going to decide who wins and who loses. But again, given the midterm election environment and the Republicans' track record when Donald Trump is not at the top of the ticket, right now I currently have Michigan as a 1.5-point victory for the Democrats in this governor's race in a very, very close and hard-fought battle in the state of Michigan. Now we're going to move to the south to the state of Georgia. Brian Kemp is term limited in this governor's race. It will be an open race. Now, the most notable Democrat currently running is former mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, though there is speculation Stacey Abrams may decide to run again. But again, nothing yet is set in stone on that. So for now, Keisha Lance Bottoms is likely Democratic nominee. On the Republican side, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones is running, and he has the endorsement already of President Trump. That certainly gives him a very big leg up in the Republican primary. Attorney General Chris Carr is also running, and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. So this could be an interesting Republican primary underway that could get competitive, as well as something to watch for. As for the general election, I think this is going to be very, very close, coinciding also with the Senate race as well with John Ossoff. I think this is going to be a super close race that I would not be shocked one bit if we have to go to a January runoff election to ultimately decide who ends up winning. For right now, though, I think Georgia sticks with the Republican identity at the state level and narrowly elects another Republican governor in the lean Republican category of around that 1.5 to 2-point margin, similar margins to what Michigan ended up being, but for the GOP in this scenario. Now we're going to move out west for our last two governors' races in Nevada and Arizona. And I'll start with Nevada, because Nevada is, I think, a little bit going under the radar right now of how competitive this race truly can be. Because Republican Joe Lombardo won the seat in 2022 from Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak. Now, Sisolak, for his own right, is reportedly considering another run for governor in 2026. Now, if he does, this could make this race very interesting as well. But also worth noting, the Attorney General of the state of Nevada, Democrat Aaron Ford, is running in this race. Now, this one's, I think, particularly interesting because there's a problem happening in Nevada that's not really being talked about too much at the national news level. And that is the unemployment rate in Las Vegas and in Clark County is actually going up a pretty considerable amount. And obviously, Las Vegas, one of the largest cities in Nevada, obviously, but also in the US, is very big. The tourism industry is very big there. And if unemployment is going up and the prices of everything is going up, that's going to hurt the city a lot. And that certainly is. And when something like that happens, what usually happens in regard? Well, usually whoever the incumbent governor is or incumbent politicians usually get a lot of that wrath. So seeing as Lombardo's the incumbent governor, that could potentially hurt his reelection chances, at very least a little bit, in the upcoming race. Now, obviously, the economy is a very big role for elections like midterm elections as well, so that could potentially be something to watch for. Now, that being said, I do still think Joe Lombardo is the favorite to win this race right now, though I do think him and Aaron Ford could be in for a very tough fight. So much so that I think Joe Lombardo wins re-election, and I think he does so around that 2-point margin as well, or in the lean Republican category. Now we have the state of Arizona, where I think this is potentially the most fascinating governor's race in the country for 2026. Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs got elected in 2022 against the Republican Kari Lake by under 1% of the vote. In what's become typical for Arizona of several days to weeks of votes being counted and waiting to see how it all goes, became a very, very close margin where Katie Hobbs barely won. Now, she is probably the most endangered Democratic governor outside of Laura Kelly, who cannot run for another term in the 2026 midterms. She'll be facing off, in all likelihood, against Republican Andy Biggs or Karen Taylor Robson, who both have the co-endorsement of Donald Trump. Now, you may, again, as I mentioned, Katie Hobbs won in 2022, facing off against Kari Lake, a Republican that is very friendly to President Trump in the Make America Great Again movement. Now, Andy Biggs and Karen Taylor Robson are also touting that same support from President Trump and from MAGA in the hopes of winning that Republican primary, which could lead to a general election where things could be very close. Now, Arizona is a fascinating state, as I mentioned, because in 2024, it just voted for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris by more than 5 points, after it narrowly voted for Joe Biden by 0.24% in 2020. So which party turns out their voters in Arizona in 2026 is going to make all the difference here. And all eyes are going to be right in here on Maricopa County. So right now, Katie Hobbs facing off against either Andy Biggs or Karen Taylor Robson. The early polling has showed a very close race with Hobbs narrowly leading. As of right now, I currently have this governor's race going under 1 point, even maybe under half a point for Katie Hobbs in this race. But man, this is going to be a very close one all the way up until Election Day in 2026. I can't wait to see how it goes. I would not be shocked if my predictions on this race go back and forth all the way through Election Day. This is going to be one of the closest governor's races in all of the United States when everything is said and done. So with that, I think it's actually a very competitive governor election cycle. Democrats end up winning 17 governor's races. Republicans end up winning 19 in a very hard fought, tough election. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you did. Leave your thoughts and comments down below about which races you think are going to go a certain way. And if you live in any one of these states that's selecting the governor in 2026, make sure to leave also which candidates maybe or party you're supporting as well in 2026. Leave that all down below. And again, make sure to hit like and subscribe so I post at least one new video every day that you're not going to want to miss out on. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.